departments. It only works if we partner very closely with them, and that's why you see representatives from our various departments lined up behind me to be able to take on your questions of the pieces that the city's doing to make sure that C3 and our community are able to successfully put on this festival. We are obviously very excited about it. It's something that our community's been asking for a number of years, and a number of people on our staff working with C3 have been able to pull this together, and we're looking forward to a very successful festival in the very near future. So in about a week and a half, so very near future. So what I'd like to do now at this point is take on whatever questions you may have about the specific aspects that you're interested in, and either I'll answer it or we'll grab one of the experts behind me to answer your questions. We'll go right. We'll go here. We'll go here.
Can you talk about the city's excitement for this festival?
Absolutely.
You've been hearing and seeing.
Sure. So, you know, as if you've been paying attention for the last 2 or 3 years, the mayor and our team have been putting a lot of effort into just really going after the music industry within Huntsville. And there's a lot of different aspects and layers to that, but some of it is about just bringing more events in and getting more opportunity for people to enjoy really high-level, world-class music events of all types of genres within our community, as opposed to having to travel outside of our community. And so when we talk about that, obviously building the Orion Amphitheater, the increased business you're seeing coming through the arena at the BBC and other venues, both public and private, coming to our community are part of that. But what we heard from a lot of people for a long time was we'd love to see a big music festival come back to our community, because some of you may remember, you know, Big Spring Jam back in the day was a pretty significant event for Huntsville, and it went away for a while. And so while we don't consider this a replacement for Big Spring Jam, it's the 2024 version of a big music festival for our community. And so we've been hearing it for lots of people for a long time, and just out the buzz within the community, we feel like we're getting very positive feedback on people's excitement around bringing that into the community.
And can you tell me a little bit about the expected economic impact of the festival?
Sure. I don't have specific numbers, and I'll turn to Shane to maybe might have some specific numbers on top of his head that he can kind of talk to. But what we know happens around these types of events is a lot of people travel in from other places. And so you just kind of look at how the hotels are booking up and things. It's people come and do things, and we talk economic impact, obviously spend their money in your community on both sides of the festival. Obviously, they're going to spend a lot of money inside the festival grounds, which a lot of that is served by local businesses. So that has a very direct impact itself. But then also, you know, where are they staying on the night before and the night after? Where are they eating, and those kinds of things around the festival as well. So we do expect several thousand people to travel into our community. So think of it just as tourist dollars, and we do have a growing tourist industry within Huntsville, and lots of different versions of that. And music tourism is just one of those things. We've seen the same thing with the Orion. I think the Orion provides a good example. When they pull credit card data, they can tell where people came from. And I've personally been out there and talking to people who traveled from Florida or Georgia or Tennessee to come in, and obviously they come and spend money in your community. So with the festival will be 20,000 plus people, and a pretty significant percentage of those will be from somewhere other than Huntsville. Yes, sir.
What's been the biggest challenge of this site in getting it ready for a festival of this scale, the entrance, the of the fans, and what's been the biggest asset?
Sure. I'm going to take on a piece of that, then I'm going to ask our police representative to come up and talk a little bit about the traffic management piece of that. So, John Hunt Park brings a lot of capacity for recreation, athletics, and things to our community, but it's also still under development. And so if you've been down there, every single year, John Hunt looks a little bit different than the year before as we continue to add venues and infrastructure and things in the park. And so there's still some of that going on. And so literally down there today, if you go down there, you'll be able to get some footage of crews laying asphalt on some greenways and walkways and things that are all part of the master plan, but also are supportive of the festival. So some of it is working with C3, making sure they understand the work that we're actively doing that they'll rely on for the festival. And so it's being kind of finished up right before the festival, and then understanding how what are the things they may have to do for something that isn't quite finished yet or whatever. So just the logistics around that. They are a professional team who does these types of things all over the place. They do Bonnaroo, and so they do festivals where they go out in the middle of a cornfield where there's absolutely no infrastructure. So in some ways, they're excited to come to a place like John Hunt where there is a good bit of infrastructure. So in that sense, it's easier, but it's also a challenge because it's still under development. And so making sure that we've identified where those shortfalls are and then have a way to mitigate those things. Traffic in and around John Hunt is a big part of that. And so what I'd ask is the police representative come up and kind of talk about what they anticipate and the things they're going to do to help manage the traffic coming into the park.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Stephen Anderson. I'm a captain with the Huntsville Police Department. I've been kind of spearheading the police department's involvement with the South Star Music Festival. As far as traffic goes, there's going to be a lot of different options available for folks to come and park when they're visiting the festival this year. There's prepaid parking that's going to be in the Joe Davis Stadium area. That's prepaid parking only. So if you're going to be parking there, don't show up day of expecting to be able to buy parking. You'll have to utilize some other form of option for parking. But we do have those sorts of options available. There's going to be free public parking at Milton Frank Stadium. And there's going to be, we'll make a secure passage from Milton Frank. If you're willing to walk, it's about a mile walk, but it's not horrible. We'll make a secured path for anyone who wants to be able to walk from that location. And I don't want to speak out of turn, but I believe there's a bus running. There'll be a bus running from Milton Frank. Okay, so I won't speak to that, but I believe there's a bus going to be running. That's also an option there. So that's kind of the general parking plan. There's also going to be some ride share that's available, and I think C3 is going to be putting out some information regarding that. But yeah, if you're going to be attending the festival, though, please be sure to get there in plenty of time in order to find some parking, be able to get to the gate in time to see your starting acts. Just give yourself plenty of time, expect congestion in the area, and just be patient with everybody while they're finding their way through.
So, a little bit more highlight on the parking. One of the things, there's multiple layers to that, as Captain Anderson was alluding to. The north end of John Hunt Park, so around Joe Davis Stadium, C3 and their team will be in control of that public parking, and so anybody who wants to have access to that, do that through the C3 systems. They're selling that parking, and so they're the right place to go for that. Everybody who's bought tickets should be getting emails from them, making sure that those folks are aware of that potential parking, which will be paid. Our city parking staff will be managing parking that's on the south end of John Hunt Park. So everything's south of Airport Road. So think the tennis center area with a baseball, softball complex, cross country, all that stuff that's on the south side of Airport Road. Our city parking staff will actually manage that. That also will be paid parking, and you'll be able to pay with credit card on the day of, basically by one day at a time. We're not pre-selling that. So a little bit of difference. C3 is pre-selling their parking on the north end of John Hunt. You can buy 1 day or 2 day passes from them. Again, get your detailed information directly from C3 and their sources. South end of Airport Road will be city parking staff, and that'll be paid at the time of arrival 1 day at a time. So a little bit different. We'll continue to push out information on that. The other thing is there's a lot of private property all around John Hunt Park. Just like if you go to a big football game in Tuscaloosa or Auburn, you can expect that there will be people out there who are charging for parking on their property. That's their private property, and that's their right to do that. So those that may want to just drive into the area and see what's available, there will certainly be those kinds of things available all around the area, just like when you go to a big football, baseball game or something other. So you'll be able to see those things. We would ask for people to give themselves a little bit extra time, pay attention to the signage, pay attention to the traffic control plans and things that the police have in place. The police are going to be there to keep cars and pedestrians separated from each other. It's really bad when those two things interact, and so they're going to try and do things to keep it safe, because there will be a lot of people both driving and walking throughout that area. So give yourself extra time and pay attention to the signs and pay attention to the instructions of the public safety officials that are there managing that. It was mentioned that public transit continues to run, and there's at least one bus route that people might find convenient to help serve that area. If they want to park further away and ride public transit into the area, then that's certainly available, and I would ask our public transit team to come up and highlight that for you.
Good afternoon. My name is John Autry. I'm the transit manager for the city of Huntsville. Huntsville Transit will be running both days until 1 hour after the show, which we anticipate to be about 12 midnight. We'll be making pickups and drop-offs from 2 locations on Drake Avenue. the Hardee's bus stop on the eastbound side of Drake, as well as the westbound at Academy Sports. There's a bus stop shelter at both locations, and it's approximately a little over half a mile walk south to the venue.
Any extra transportation for like the hotels that are going to be housing a lot of these people? Are there going to be any other stops for them, or is it just the two that you mentioned?
So we'll be running our regular Orbit fixed route service on Saturday, which will run all day, and then when that ends, we will implement some additional buses that will help with the egress, and folks leaving the concert can catch our buses at any one of the 3 stops I named, the Hardee's on Drake, Academy Sports on Drake, or the backside of the Parkway Place Mall. And so there's probably a little bit of parking there as well. That bus route, just those 3 locations, will still connect to the new transit center on Pratt, and we'll have buses and drivers ready to take folks the rest of the way home. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I know C3 is handling, the festival itself and all that. That said, but with the cancellation of the Jane's Addiction Tour, one of the biggest acts on the bill, what is the dialogue since that happened been between C3 and the city? Like, have they updated you if they're planning for replacement or some other plan in case they don't get a replacement act to maybe? Can you talk about your dialogue with C3 since the Jane's Addiction Tour cancellation?
Sure. It really, it's more us just kind of receiving information from them, and then one is they reached out to us to make sure that we were aware, which we appreciate. I mean, it's a good partnership. Obviously, we were seeing a lot of stuff in the news as well, and there was all the viral videos. So those of us that had seen that over the weekend were kind of already thought there might be something in the works. But they did inform us when it became official that Jane's Addiction had to cancel. And also part of that was that they were working very hard to find a suitable replacement. Obviously, if you look at where Jane's Addiction slotted, that's one of the more significant acts, in terms of their prominence, but also the dollar value associated with that slot. So they do have funding to work with to attract a replacement. I don't have up to the minute on where they are in that process. Obviously, C3 as an element of Live Nation has lots of connections in the music world, and so if anybody can find a replacement, it's them. And we've got a lot of confidence that if it's possible, they will accomplish it because they've got those kind of connections. But I don't have an up-to-minute date on where they are exactly in that process. Obviously, this late in the game is pretty challenging, but they're working it hard. And this kind of thing happens. It's not that unusual where somebody has to drop out of a festival for some reason or other. It's unfortunate that so late in the process. This obviously would be different if it was a month or 2 ago when it occurred. But they are working it hard, and we have confidence in their ability to get it done if it's possible.
I want to talk a little bit about security. I know this is the first big festival that we've seen in quite a while. So what can we expect from our law enforcement to ensure the safety, that everybody's driving safely, as well as people inside the venue? Are we going to have officers in there as well, making sure that everybody's, minding their business and doing what they need to be doing?
Absolutely, and I'm going to have the police come up and augment. I had opportunity to go kind of personally observe how C3 does that at other festivals, and they bring a very robust package, not only of private security that partners with the police, but then also partnering with the local law enforcement and other public safety officials, because it's not just the police side of things. When we talk public safety, there's other aspect of that as well, and so the fire department and EMA and other partners are all involved in that process. So the quick, easy answer to your question is yes, it's very, very robust. The safety matters to them a great deal. We'll look at the plans for weather emergencies and all those kinds of things. There's any number of kinds of things that could happen. There's going to be some sort of medical emergency. Somebody is going to have some reason to go see a doctor or whatever, and so having those plans in place is extremely important to them and to us, and so it will be very robust. But to get more detailed answers specific to the law enforcement piece, I'll ask the police to come up and answer that for you.
Good afternoon. In regard to your question, we will have an adequate number of off-duty personnel as well as on-duty personnel inside the site as well as surrounding area. And we will also make sure at the same time our patrol strength numbers will be pretty much the same as we always do.
Just real quick, what precautions is HPD taking along with others just leading up to next weekend?
As far as our precautions,
As far as your precautions you guys are
well, I mean, we're going to, certainly when you have an event like this, you certainly have a lot of people who commingle with each other. We want to make sure everybody acts responsibly inside the site. We'll also have adequate medical personnel in there as well. I can't go into details as far as what we specifically will do, but we'll be prepared. Thank you.
You know, one final piece on the public safety. One of the things that's really important when you're in this kind of event is that your public safety professionals are even aware there's an issue. And so communications matters. Having the command and control on site, the ability to quickly make decisions where necessary is really important. So one of the things that C3 partners with us on is in the back of house area, there's actually a command center that will have the people we need, the senior leadership from law enforcement, from fire, from HIMSI, from EMA, monitoring what's going on. They've got good camera shots so they can see if there's a disturbance somewhere where they can react quickly. So it's not only having a police officer or a EMS person there, but actually knowing where to send them in that huge crowd across all those acres of land. And so making sure they're monitoring that properly and being able to quickly vector in support to an area is important, and that is in place.
When can we expect to see setup again?
So C3's team actually starts rolling in a few of the kind of their senior leaders tomorrow, and then kind of every day after that, more and more of their team comes in, and so really they'll start working it over the weekend. And I think if you were to go out there Monday, Tuesday, you'll start seeing some fencing and things like that starting to go up, and it just kind of builds throughout the week. But they'll be working it hard all really starting tomorrow all the way through to the day that it starts.
Roughly how big would you say that this setup is going to be in comparison to the area?
So the areas that will be fenced in, where ticket holders, where the patrons will be, is about 80% of the festival area. So that is on the western side of that is J.C. Way. You got Steve Hedinger Drive on the south and Phil Dott's on the north up to the stadium. So that's what we call the festival area. And on the map here, it's all of this. So you're welcome to come up and look at the map in more detail at the end of this. But it's about 80% of that. But then it's also all of that grass area that's immediately south of the Iceplex. So all the way over to Lehman Ferry. So it's going to be kind of an L-shaped setup. I want to say that's probably a dozen or more acres. I mean, it's a pretty significant site. I haven't actually measured it out since they kind of did all that. And then the parking lots that are internal to the park, they're taking over to support all their back of house areas. Because they have two large stages, you end up doubling up on back of house, artist areas, those kind of things, depending on which stage that they're performing on. So the way the festival runs, it kind of alternates between the two stages, so you don't have dead time as the next band sets up. So as somebody finishes on stage one, then stage two is kicking off, and so you just always have one of the two stages has always got a performance going on, and so that kind of doubles up the logistics in order to make it all work. So it's pretty significant setup and the resources required to make it work. Yes, sir.
Yeah, with all the resources and stuff, this improvements and stuff, the city's contributions to
Mhm.
this, is there a ticket number, just because numbers are numbers, that ticket number that needs to be sold in order for the city to break even on their investment? If so, what is that?
So, in terms of construction, infrastructure kinds of things, we're not building out anything that's just for this festival. So a lot of this is, as we're building out, when I talk about the greenways down there being paved right now, that was in the master plan anyway. It's an important part of our overall pedestrian infrastructure plan for the park. It's just the timing of it was important for this festival. So the hard infrastructure things that we're building are things that we need for all the kinds of events that might occur in the park, and so it supports everybody. So we're not really trying to go back and tie, a return on investment from this one festival to that kind of investment, because it's so much bigger than just the one festival for that kind of piece of your question, but when we work with C3 on the financials, the way festivals work, generally the first year's a little bit smaller, and they want to grow it year by year because they intend for this to be a long-term, multi-year festival. We hopefully goes on for decades if it's successful, and so every year gets a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. Where we really need to get to for it to be successful and sustainable long-term is getting to 30,000 plus. So right now, this year, we're probably in the 20,000, low 20,000s probably. But the goal would be you start growing that, get it to 30,000, get it to 35,000 over a multiple years of growth is really what their target is.
And off of that, this is pretty ambitious. Huntsville hasn't had this kind of scale festival for a long time. Getting these big acts, getting the infrastructure, all that supported. What's been the most challenging side, the city side? How have you met that challenge of this ambitious?
I think really, and I want to ask Shane to come up and talk to this because Shane Davis, our Director of Economic Development, is who engaged directly with C3 the most, along with Matt Mandrella from our music office, and really work on the contract and the different pieces. I've focused more on the park itself, kind of as the way the division of responsibilities within the city, that area kind of falls under me. And so, the challenge is really just the challenge of building out something as big and complex as John Hunt Park, which has been a multiple-year thing. I mean, we've been 8 or 9 years of development and still have multiple years of really getting it to fully execute that master plan. And so that's just the normal thing of getting through, dealing with weather, the way it impacts construction, stuff like that. So that's something we're dealing with every single day. It's not unique to getting ready for this festival, but just pulling together that infrastructure and continuing to build it out and make the park what we want it to be, and making it functional the way it needs to be for this type of for this kind of festival has always got its normal kind of construction challenges. But I think really it's about the big challenge is what's on C3's plate, which is pulling together all of these acts and getting the right mixture of genres, those kind of things, to really be attractive to that crowd of someday 30,000, 35,000 is particularly challenging. But I'd ask Shane Davis to come out and kind of talk a little bit about that history and how he worked with them on pulling together the concept for the festival. So.
Thanks, John. Good afternoon. I'm Shane Davis, Director of Urban Economic. Hey, Matt. Speaking of challenges, I think it's important for the public, certainly in North Alabama, to know our original contract was to have a festival in 2025. So working with our partners at C3, who has been first class, we've been able to accelerate that to what will happen next week. That brings some challenges. It brings maybe the biggest challenge in my book in working with C3 is Huntsville community in North Alabama. I think it's hard for us to explain the size, the scale, and quality of the festival that will happen next week. And then it's a first-year festival. So some concert goers like myself, first-year festivals, they may not be quite ready for that. I'll see, listen to a friend, how did it go, and maybe year 2 is when I'll dip in. I can tell you about the group behind us, the city staff, C3. It will not have first-year hiccups. They have thought through this very thoroughly. I challenge the community to start early next week. Just take a drive-by as you see it setting up. I think our challenge has been getting people to understand this is not Big Spring Jam. Not that Big Spring Jam wasn't great. It was phenomenal. But the size, the scale, the quality of what you will experience on these grounds is like nothing we've had in North Alabama. Okay? That's been a big challenge. And then to accelerate it by a year on top of that. So I think where we're at, both the city and C3, to be averaging, somewhere between 20 and 22,000 patrons per day is where we wanted to be. We were hoping to get somewhere in that 20 to 25. We're close. And I think the other challenge is, when we did the music audit, and then the Conventions Bureau standing behind you, and I know they did some surveys both with small business, area business, and just the general community. What's the number one thing you'd like to see? The Conventions Bureau. 96% of the response, number one thing was a music festival, both by corporations, by citizens. It was the number one thing in our music audit. So I think when we launch this, one of the things we really want to push, they can call the city website, go to the city website, call the city, call the music office, C3, is corporate ticket packages. I truly challenge corporations, the businesses that ask the city, said, look, our employees are asking for this. It's a workforce retention, it's a workforce recruitment piece to continue to evolve Huntsville. It's why we got into the music audit and the acceleration we've had is the way we announced it. A lot of people had already had some of their budgets, but really look at those. They've done some deep discounts. It's a way to show support to this festival, to your community, but also give back to your employees. If there's anything that we've lacked, it's been that piece. The individual ticket sales for the time span that we've launched this, most time you'd had almost 10 months to start selling tickets. You know, we've been doing it in about 4 or 5 months. It went really strong.
Are you expecting to continue this partnership down the line?
With C3? Absolutely. So our current contract's a 3-year contract. Certainly, they wanted to test the market. We wanted to test our promoter, right, to make sure that if things did not go well, we had opportunity to pivot on behalf of our community. So far, we don't see any changes that we would want to make or C3. So certainly for 3 years, I think, you know, after next year, we'll be in conversations of how to extend that if things continue to track. The economic impact, I do want to speak on that just briefly. We will be putting one together after the festival. It takes a couple of months. We know it will be millions of dollars. Just last week, at the last count I had, working very close with the Conventions Bureau, had over 23 hotels completely sold out. So that says that it's selling not only well locally, but regionally also. So people are wanting to come to Huntsville to this festival, come to our city. And I think a lot of that's from accolades of people know Huntsville more than they did 10 years ago. But also they know C3 and they know Live Nation and they know the top festivals they put on. So the outside traveler is really picking up. We think that'll continue as we get past this first year and the next year moving forward. So we know the impact will be significant. I think last count, CVB, everything downtown, south, north, and southeast is sold out. There were still some rooms available towards our western corridor. So we know the impact will be significant.
With that, do you have an estimate of about how many people are expected to show up the days or during the festival?
So we're going to average right now just around 21,000 per day. And we'll get those numbers. That was as of last week, based on ticket sales and the amount of tickets that are being absorbed daily. That's our projection. No, you're fine. You're fine. No, absolutely. Yes. So over the weekend, 40 to 45,000 people will be on John Hunt Park. Yeah.
But just a separate question. Talk about the excitement working with not only Metrella, but also C3 building up to this event.
No, it's been great. As I said, you know, this partnership, we went through an RFP process to choose our promoter. We got several applications in. And then as we started to go through those, it wasn't just your track record. That was a big piece. And certainly, you know, they're one of the largest in the world of doing festivals. But also, what did the terms look like? You know, we do have financial commitments in this. We've spent some money per the contract on marketing, dollar for dollar. They've actually exceeded what they intended, which we didn't have to match. We had a cap, and they've certainly exceeded that on a regional scale. And then the in-kind support that Colonel Hamilton has mentioned, that this staff has done a great job, and their employees. But from day one, out of the gate, right after the contract, C3 with Matt, myself, John Hamilton, and others, it started these weekly conversations. And as that progressed within a month, they said, guys, we think we can do what you really want to do, which was to accelerate this by a year. And that's where we're at next weekend. So, you know, just their support, their belief in the Huntsville community has been phenomenal.
Shane, just because people like to know this, what is that marketing dollar figure cap? And second to that, just again, because people like to know where that comes from, the master plan, what funds that?
Yeah, great question. I do not have that in front of me. It's available on our website. You can look at that from council agenda items. But what funds that is the Economic Development Fund. So we have a fund in our capital plan, so it's not taking away from street resurfacing or drainage or anything that's providing services to our public. So we have a very small amount of economic development funds that do different things. It may recruit new retail. It may helps recruit industry and jobs, but also recruits events like this. So it's coming out of that bucket of funds. So it's not that we committed to this festival by removing something and providing a service or infrastructure to other parts of our community. Turn it back over to Mr. Hamilton for any closing remarks.
Any final questions? Yes, sir.
This isn't the
Sure. So, yeah, obviously, I'm not going to talk specific techniques and things like that that they might go through. Much of that responsibility. So, first off, let me back up and say, everybody should be looking at the know before you go information coming out from C3 of what you can and cannot bring into the festival. Obviously, weapons will be highlighted in there of exactly what you can and cannot bring, with emphasis on what you cannot bring into the festival area. And obviously, everybody wants to keep it safe. I would say what the patrons will see is very similar to what you would go through going into a football game, a baseball game, going into the VBC or the Orion, in terms of the scanning and the things that the staff will do to ensure that everybody is obeying the rules and not bringing things that they're not authorized to do. But then on top of that, there is law enforcement security that is moving throughout the crowd. There absolutely will be cameras and things to help monitor activities and things throughout that crowd. Obviously, it's spread over a large area, and so you're not going to have a police officer's eyes on every single person in every single square inch of that area. So they'll rely on technology to help them monitor those kinds of things and be prepared to respond quickly if there is a disturbance of some sort to deal with that. So we would ask, first and foremost, people, this is about coming out, enjoying yourself, and having fun. Focus on that piece and obey the rules. Know what you can and cannot bring into the festival area. But rest assured, there absolutely will be security, multiple layers, relying on technology to help them make sure that people stay safe. Sure. Okay, so thank you all for being here. We really appreciate the work that you do, getting information out to our citizens and throughout the region. We stand ready to answer any other questions that you might have, and we certainly want to really emphasize and encourage people to be monitoring our social media and the websites and things that C3 is publishing, because they really are the best and primary resource that the patrons, the ticket buyers, need to be listening to on exactly what they can and cannot do when they come into the festival area. So thank you again, and we're ready to answer any other questions that you might have if we need to individually. So thank you.
I want to have one last thing. Reach out to Adam and our communications team about midweek. We're working on the opportunity as they set up to allow you to go see that, do some broadcasting from there. So just help get the size and scale of this festival. So kind of say in communications team, and they'll keep you abroad with that opportunity, okay?